as we've been asking now for centuries, is there life out there? Well, get this. A place in the valley says yes.
They say there are witnesses to extraterrestrial life at their UFO watchtower.
In 1967, 9-year-old Lisa Ren vanished into a Colorado cornfield after following a mysterious tall figure. 11 hours later, she returned at dawn, but something was wrong. For 6 straight hours, Lisa spoke in a structured language that neither her family nor university linguists could identify. How could a child suddenly speak with unfamiliar grammar and syntax? And why did investigators and the recordings of her voice later disappear? This chilling mystery of lost evidence and unexplained phenomena still haunts Colorado's San Luis Valley. Lisa's disappearance and return. In the quiet town of Harlow Creek, Colorado, on September 14, 1967, 9-year-old Lisa Ren vanished into a nearby cornfield under mysterious circumstances. It was a clear Saturday afternoon, and Lisa was playing alone near her family's property when she suddenly walked toward the edge of a vast field of dried corn. Witnesses later learned she was following something tall and gray, standing unnaturally still at the tree line. From that moment until nearly 3 in the morning, Lisa was nowhere to be seen. Her disappearance lasted 11 hours. A blank stretch of time that no one has been able to explain fully. When Lisa finally returned, it was her older brother Thomas who found her standing motionless at the kitchen door. It was 2:47 a.m., and Lisa's appearance was unsettling. She was upright, eyes wide open, dry, and not crying or visibly hurt. She stared silently at a fixed point on the wall and began speaking continuously for approximately 6 hours. What Lisa was saying baffled her family, and later, experts. No one recognized her words as any known language, and she was unresponsive to any attempts to comfort or interrupt her. Lisa's mother initially thought her daughter might be praying or reciting something memorized, but Lisa's speech was relentless, fluid, and unwavering, unlike anything witnessed before. Her brother Thomas, recognizing the strange significance of the situation, used a small tape recorder to capture the speech. Those recordings became the starting point for a rare and deeply puzzling investigation. The nature of Lisa's prolonged, unknown language would become central to one of the most perplexing cases in UFO and linguistic folklore. The townsfolk and Lisa's family were left with more questions than answers. How could a child disappear without a trace for nearly half a day, and then return seemingly unharmed, but speaking a language no one could identify? Why did she follow an inexplicable figure into that cornfield? These mysteries set the stage for a story that stretches beyond simple explanations, hinting at encounters far outside everyday reality. Lisa's disappearance and return became a puzzle no local or expert could readily solve. Much of what we know about the disappearance and return comes from Lisa's fragmented disclosures over the weeks that followed, interviews conducted years later by researcher Gerald Marsh, and linguistic analyses from university experts. Each source added pieces to a picture that remained incomplete and deeply enigmatic. The early hours after her return, when she spoke for hours in the unknown language, became a defining moment, one that would attract attention far beyond Harlow Creek. Despite the passage of time, no definitive explanation for Lisa's disappearance or her subsequent speech has been accepted. Her case challenges not only local law enforcement, but also academic boundaries, pushing into areas of linguistics, psychology, and UFO research. Compounding the mystery is the disappearance of recordings and notes that might have clarified events. The elusiveness of the evidence only deepens the question of what really happened in that cornfield. Lisa's sudden appearance and the nature of her speech suggest something extraordinary. Not a normal child's behavior after an absence, but a phenomenon that demands closer scrutiny. Whatever happened during those 11 hours, it left a lasting imprint on her and everyone who witnessed the aftermath. The story of her disappearance and inexplicable return is only the beginning, a doorway into a strange and unsettling encounter that defies conventional understanding. This unresolved mystery invites us to look beyond the immediate event and consider what might exist at the edges of normal experience. Lisa's story is not just about a lost child returning home. It's about what she brought back with her, something that continues to puzzle and provoke questions decades later. What she encountered and the language she spoke ultimately became the key that opened a door to even stranger revelations. Strange descriptions of the figure. Lisa Ren gave a haunting description of the entity she followed into the cornfield, one that sounds like it stepped from the pages of a strange folklore or science fiction. According to her fragmented accounts, the figure was tall, pale, and thin, standing rigidly at the edge of the field near the tree line. Her description emphasized an oddly large head in proportion to its body and eyes that reflected light in a way she compared to a cat, but much larger. The figure's skin was gray, smooth, and unnatural, evoking images familiar to those who study UFO and alien encounter reports. What makes Lisa's description even more uncanny is the way she explained her connection to the figure. She said it didn't speak aloud but communicated with her not through words but as a question she felt inside her chest. It was an invitation, a silent call that she somehow understood, compelling her to follow without fear or hesitation. This mode of communication, tactile and internal, rather than vocal or visible, adds a surreal dimension to the encounter. The details Lisa recalled match frequently reported characteristics from other alleged close encounters in UFO literature. A tall, thin humanoid with large eyes and an outsider presence at isolated rural locations. Her account aligns closely with what many describe as gray aliens, figures often reported in the San Luis Valley and other regions known for anomalous activity. What is striking is that these iconic images were being described decades ago by a child with no context for such ideas. Several Harlow Creek residents who later interacted with Lisa reported her demeanor as distant and unusual. She spoke little about what she saw, but insisted it was real and that she felt compelled to follow. Her mother and brother recalled Lisa's struggle to find words to explain what happened, a normal child's vocabulary falling short against the reality of the moment. This gap between experience and language deepened the mystery and raised suspicion that she had encountered something beyond comprehension. Lisa's fearlessness in following the being contrasts sharply with typical child behavior around strangers or unknown entities. There was no indication she was running away or hiding, but rather drawn in, as if the figure exerted a magnetic pull. This element of voluntary engagement adds complexity to the narrative, suggesting curiosity or compulsion rather than panic or escape. The figure's presence at 7 a.m. on a clear Saturday morning in a quiet rural town further stands out as outlandish. No other witnesses reported seeing the entity, and no logical explanation exists for why something so bizarre would appear in broad daylight, exactly where Lisa was playing. The lack of corroboration from others adds weight to the isolation and specificity of her encounter. These descriptions also resonate within the broader tapestry of regional anomalies during that time. Unexplained lights, missing time events, and strange animal mutilations recorded within miles from her home. Lisa's figure may have been one piece of a larger puzzle woven into a region with unusual and persistent activity. The context makes it difficult to dismiss her story as merely a child's imagination or local lore. The entity Lisa described mysteriously becomes less an individual oddity and more a symbol of something mysterious recurring in place and time. Her story pulls us into a landscape where the boundaries between normal life and the anomalous blur, raising important questions about what else might have been happening in that valley during those years. Understanding the figure's nature and why it appeared to Lisa is crucial, because it's the thread that leads into questions about what she experienced inside the field and what the language she later spoke might represent. The unfamiliar language. One of the most perplexing aspects of Lisa Ren's story is the uninterrupted 6-hour monologue she delivered upon her return, speaking in a language no one could identify. Far from gibberish or random sounds, university linguists who studied home recordings described the speech as exhibiting consistent phonological patterns, grammar, and syntax. Dr. Lenora Vale, who analyzed the tapes extensively, reported that the vocalizations followed a systematic structure, indicating an actual language with meaningful communication. Vail's analysis revealed that the language showed morphemic patterning, units of meaning combined in ways characteristic of human languages. Yet it did not resemble English, Spanish, French, or any known tongues familiar to experts. Multiple linguists independently confirmed this, recognizing grammar rules but unable to trace the language to any language family. This linguistic enigma challenges simple explanations of trauma-induced babbling or invented speech. The tapes that captured Lisa's vocalization became central to the investigation, but later disappeared from university archives with no clear record of their whereabouts. This disappearance alone fuels speculation about academic reticence or possible suppression of evidence. Despite Vail's thorough 4 months of study and consultations with colleagues at prominent institutions, her findings were never formally published in linguistics journals, with submissions rejected without review. The recording's partial obscurity due to background noise and the low quality of the original tape complicate analysis, but do not undermine the undeniable presence of structured language. Thomas Wren's foresight in recording the incident preserved evidence that otherwise would have been lost, offering rare documentation of something extraordinary. This material hints at contact with a form of communication outside conventional human experience. Linguists who reviewed available transcriptions noted the language resembled an agglutinative structure where meaning builds through affixing segments to root words, much like Turkish or Finnish. However, none could associate the actual syllables or morphemes with any existing vocabulary or known linguistic roots. The implication is a foreign yet coherent language, one that suggests an intelligence behind it. This creates a profound puzzle. How did a 9-year-old from rural Colorado suddenly acquire and speak an unknown language with grammatical complexity? Lisa had no known exposure to foreign languages, no teaching beyond English, and no access to linguistic recordings or materials. Researchers have ruled out prior modeling or educational factors that could explain the phenomenon. The official explanation offered by some investigators points to trauma-based dissociation or confabulation, suggesting Lisa created the speech unconsciously. Yet, this theory struggles to accommodate the linguistic complexity and pattern evident in the recordings. Language is a social phenomenon that develops over time within communities, something no single child can spontaneously fabricate with such consistency. What Lisa spoke remains an unsolved riddle, a glimpse at a form of communication that defies current understanding. Her language raises fundamental questions about the nature of contact, consciousness, and knowledge transmission. It leaves us wondering who or what might have gifted her this tongue, and for what purpose. The mystery of Lisa's language extends beyond her words themselves, pointing toward broader implications about human connection to unknown realms, an invitation to explore what lies at the edge of human comprehension. Lisa's mysterious disappearance, the eerie figure she followed, and the unknown language she spoke pull us deeper into a story that challenges our assumptions about reality and the limits of human experience. Lost evidence and academic silence. The recordings of Lisa Ren's 6-hour speech initially brought rare academic interest, especially from Dr. Lenora Vail, a linguist at the University of Colorado. Vail dedicated months to analyzing the tapes, collaborating with colleagues, and even reaching out to linguists at Georgetown, the University of Michigan, UCLA, and the Summer Institute of Linguistics. She described the vocalizations as linguistically structured, displaying complex patterns of grammar and meaning unknown in any known human language. Yet, despite the significance of these findings, the academic community was unwelcoming. Vail's journal submission was rejected without review, a silence that raises questions about whether the topic was considered too controversial or unbelievable to engage seriously. What makes this silence more baffling is that Vail, who later carved out a notable career studying pidgin languages in Melanesia, abruptly ceased all research or mention of the Harlow Creek case after 1969. 4 months of intense study simply vanished from her published work, as though a chapter had been closed and locked away. The tapes she labored over, which held critical evidence, were catalogued in early 1968 but disappeared from the university's archives in the mid-1970s. No transfer records, no explanation, just an inexplicable erasure. This disappearing act has led to speculation over whether there was a deliberate effort to bury the evidence or if bureaucratic neglect simply swallowed the records. Further complicating matters is that the family's private records and original documents also vanished. Mary Wren's handwritten notes, later given to researcher Gerald Marsh, were reportedly destroyed in a house fire in 1983. Thomas Wren's original tapes remain unaccounted for, and Thomas himself passed away in 1991 without publicly speaking about the night Lisa returned. This patchwork loss of primary sources makes reconstructing the incident fraught with uncertainty. Every piece of direct evidence bears an asterisk marked by absence and mystery. When researchers later tried to trace these lost materials, they found archival records indicating transfers but no accompanying documentation about destination or access. The distinct lack of transparency fuels the idea that something has been quietly suppressed or ignored. In academic circles, especially during the late 1960s, any allegation of alien contact or anomalous language was often met with skepticism, and the risk to professional reputations was real. Yet the thoroughness and consistency of Vail's linguistic observations suggest a compelling anomaly, one dismissed not for lack of substance, but for its inconvenient implications. This pattern of lost evidence and sudden silence doesn't appear accidental when seen in context. What remains of the case, photocopies of letters, fragmented second-hand accounts, and secondary research, forms a shadow of the original investigation. The disjointed trail invites a question about how we handle evidence that challenges established knowledge or belief systems. The erasure of these materials doesn't just complicate research, it deepens the enigma, leaving the truth buried beneath layers of institutional silence. Despite all this, the whispers of the Harlow Creek incident have never fully vanished. The story circulated in UFO research circles through the 1970s and early 1980s, often referenced as one of the most perplexing linguistic anomalies linked to contact cases. Yet the absence of original materials makes definitive conclusions impossible. It becomes a story caught between credibility and disappearance, a tantalizing mystery, half told, half lost to time. At its core, the academic silence doesn't protect us from the unknown. It only heightens the sense of absence, a silence louder than any explanation. The void left by missing tapes and vanished reports looms over Lisa's story, underscoring the fragility of what history preserves. And yet, even as the paper trail fades, the location at the heart of it all carries its own significance, one that links the isolated incident to an entire region steeped in strange phenomena and unexplainable events. The San Luis Valley Anomalies. Lisa Ren's encounter unfolded in the San Luis Valley, a vast, high-altitude basin stretching approximately 150 miles long and 50 miles wide in south-central Colorado. This flat, expansive area, surrounded by towering mountains, boasts an eerie reputation, documented as one of the highest concentrations of UFO sightings per square mile in the continental United States. While the rigor of data collection varies, it is undeniable that reports of strange lights, missing time, and unexplained phenomena cluster unusually here, weaving a tapestry of mystery that envelopes Lisa's story. Just 1 month after Lisa's disappearance, local ranchers discovered a horse known as Snippy dead under unusual and widely discussed circumstances. Over time, various explanations were proposed, but no single interpretation gained universal acceptance. The incident became one of several mysteries that contributed to the San Luis Valley's reputation for unexplained events. Nearby communities also reported unusual aerial sightings during the same period, adding to the region's growing folklore. Further adding complexity is the reported Blanca Peak incident from 1971, in which members of a Colorado Geological Survey team later described experiencing an unexplained gap in their recollection of events. According to their accounts, they observed an unusual light before realizing that more time had passed than expected. While the details remain difficult to verify decades later, the story has often been cited by researchers interested in regional mysteries. Each of these events shares a characteristic absence: missing time, missing evidence, unexplained circumstances that eludes conventional understanding. Skeptics argue these are isolated stories, folk tales, or the product of isolated imaginations, but when mapped collectively, the clustering becomes harder to dismiss as coincidence or error. This web of regional mysteries suggests something recurrent, something that visits or influences the San Luis Valley repeatedly over years. The question of why Lisa, a child playing near her home, was the recipient of such an experience amid this backdrop deepens the intrigue. The valley's long-standing association with UFO activity elevates Lisa's case from mere local oddity to part of a broader, unresolved phenomenon. The landscape itself seems to invite encounters that defy explanation, turning everyday locations into thresholds for the unknown. The shadows cast by these overlapping incidents point to a force or presence quietly threading through time and space in this remote corner of Colorado. Whether natural, psychological, or otherworldly, it shapes the narrative of Lisa's experience and resonates through countless similar stories. In the vast silence of the valley, the echoes of what Lisa witnessed ripple across decades, challenging our sense of reality and urging us to consider the possibility that some mysteries refuse to be contained. As the language Lisa spoke remains undecipherable and the figures she described remain unexplained, the region itself stands as a silent witness to events that may never fully yield their secrets. The threads connecting the lost evidence to the anomalous environment of the San Luis Valley pull the story deeper into a realm where human knowledge meets its limits, setting the stage for the unexplained behavioral changes Lisa experienced after her return. Behavioral changes after returning. After Lisa Ren's mysterious return, her life on the surface seemed to normalize. She went back to school, played with friends, ate, and slept. Yet beneath that outward appearance, subtle but persistent changes began to show in her behavior. Her mother, Mary Ren, kept private notes documenting these odd shifts. Lisa would sometimes pause mid-conversation, tilting her head as if listening intently to something invisible, something nobody else could hear. These moments hinted at an ongoing connection to whatever she had experienced that day. Lisa also developed an obsession with drawing geometric patterns. Her teacher noticed that her sketches often involved triangles nested within circles and spiraling sequences, mathematical shapes that seemed far more precise than typical childlike doodles. This fixation raised questions about whether Lisa was subconsciously trying to process or express something she couldn't explain in words, a visual language, instead of the one she spoke that early morning. These drawings remain a strange footnote in a story full of mysteries. More remarkable were reports from Mary Ren that on two separate occasions in November 1967 and again in January 1968, Lisa was found standing outside at night, staring at the sky. Her lips moved silently as if answering a question from the darkness above. When asked what she was saying, Lisa replied simply, "I was answering." This word, answering, conveys an ongoing dialogue with an unseen presence or force, a continuation of the strange communication first heard on that 6-hour recording. It suggests Lisa had retained some link to the language or interaction that initially overwhelmed her. These behaviors, silent lip movements, repeating geometric designs, and intense listening, set Lisa apart from her peers and from typical childhood development. They imply that the encounter in the cornfield left a lasting imprint beyond mere memory or trauma. Some individuals close to the case speculate Lisa was responding to questions posed from unknown sources, perhaps maintaining contact with entities or realms unseen by others. This notion carries both fascination and unease. Despite efforts to understand these changes, Lisa, her family, and the researchers could never fully decode or interpret these signs. They exist as atmospheric shadows around her daily life, subtle reminders of an experience that refused to end with her physical return. Even the lingering feeling of being connected to something elsewhere cannot be measured or explained by conventional science or psychology. It remains a quietly haunting aspect of her story. Mary Wren's observations and notes were later shared with researcher Gerald Marsh, who considered them alongside other data. Yet, as with the tapes and recordings, much of this intimate documentation has been lost or destroyed, leaving the small remaining details to speak for themselves. The fragmented evidence means we are left piecing together the aftermath largely through second-hand accounts and guarded memories. Lisa's reported behaviors challenge the simple narrative of a missing child who returned unharmed. Instead, they hint at an altered consciousness, a permeability to forces or knowledge beyond material reality. Whether these changes were caused by trauma, contact, or something else, they remind us that certain encounters leave marks not just on body, but on mind and spirit. The mystery deepens with these behavioral clues, suggesting that some knowledge or experience couldn't be entirely erased or forgotten. Perhaps Lisa's experience altered her understanding of reality in ways invisible to most, but profound nonetheless. These subtle shifts in Lisa's life create a bridge to a broader examination of the language she spoke, and the lingering question of why such a complex form of communication was given, and what it truly meant. Linguistics and the mystery language. The linguistic dimension of Lisa Ren's case remains one of its most intriguing claims. According to accounts attributed to researchers who examined recordings of her speech, they believed the vocalizations displayed patterns resembling structured language rather than random sounds. However, because the original recordings are reportedly unavailable, these assessments cannot be independently verified today. Experts described the language as agglutinative, meaning it built complex meanings by combining smaller segments attached to root forms, features found in languages like Turkish or Finnish. Syllable combinations followed patterns that could not be dismissed as accidental, demonstrating a system of encoding information logically arranged. Yet, despite exhaustive comparisons, no linguist could link the syllables or structure to any known language family, ancient or modern. It was a language apart, familiar in form but alien in content. Such complexity challenges conventional explanations common in anomalous claims, like trauma-induced invented sounds or cryptic vocalizations. Language acquisition, especially with grammar and morphology, usually requires prolonged social interaction and cultural transmission. Lisa's sudden, isolated use of this unknown language defies that understanding. There is no evidence she encountered foreign languages, nor any plausible way to have fabricated such a system spontaneously at 9 years old. This linguistic mystery led to deep academic discomfort. Though Vale spent 4 months analyzing the tapes and seeking peer input, her findings were marginalized, and publishing efforts were halted without review. This response reflects both a skepticism born from the extraordinary nature of the claims and an unwillingness to engage with something that challenges established linguistic theory. The rejection of the study without substantive critique leaves a void where important dialogue might have developed. Further confounding the issue is the disappearance of the original tapes that contained Lisa's extended speech, along with vital documentation. Without these resources, the linguistic puzzle remains tantalizing but incomplete, forcing reliance on secondary accounts and partial transcriptions. The loss of primary evidence is a critical gap in understanding what was captured in those 6 hours. Some linguists who examined available transcriptions noted that while the roots and vocabulary were unrecognized, the grammar felt authentic in its logic and consistency. One expert remarked that the strangest aspect was not the unknown words themselves, but that the grammar, a framework grown over generations in human societies, was unmistakably present. This implies that the language could not have been fabricated spontaneously or by a child acting out trauma. The mystery language thus forces us to reconsider assumptions about communication, knowledge transmission, and even consciousness. Could it be a relic from an unknown source, extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, or something else? Or was it a form of contact designed for a purpose beyond human comprehension, delivered in a way that a child could receive but not fully retain? Whatever its origin, the structured linguistic nature of Lisa's speech shifts the story from anecdote to something bordering on an enigma, demanding serious attention. It poses fundamental questions about what languages are, how they arise, and whether communication might sometimes transcend familiar human limits. The unknown language is more than words. It is a coded message from a mystery still resisting understanding, shaping the enigma that surrounds Lisa Ren's encounter. The complexity of the language Lisa spoke links closely to the subtle but persistent changes in her behavior, weaving together threads of an experience that continues to challenge our grasp of reality and communication. Unanswered questions and lasting impact. Lisa Ren's case remains filled with unanswered questions. Why would a 9-year-old girl from rural Colorado become the center of such a strange encounter? Unlike scientists, military personnel, or researchers, Lisa had no obvious connection to anything paranormal, making her role in the story all the more puzzling. Equally mysterious is the language she spoke after returning. As Dr. Vale reportedly asked, if it truly was a language, what was it meant for? Human languages develop within communities over generations, yet Lisa appeared to access a structured form of communication that seemed to come from nowhere. Was it intended to convey information, establish contact, or something else entirely? The language itself proved temporary. Lisa spoke continuously for hours after her return, but the ability gradually faded. This disappearance challenges conventional ideas about memory and language acquisition, raising questions about whether the experience was a lasting imprint or only a brief transmission. The loss of key evidence deepens the mystery. Audio recordings, notebooks, and other materials reportedly vanished over time, leaving researchers with little to examine. Whether this resulted from suppression, neglect, or simple misfortune remains unknown. Another question concerns the reliability of the surviving accounts. Much of Lisa's story appears to depend on reports passed down through investigators, witnesses, and later researchers. Without the original recordings or complete documentation, it is difficult to separate confirmed details from exaggerations, misunderstandings, or memories altered by time. This uncertainty does not necessarily disprove the encounter, but it makes the truth far more difficult to establish. Lisa's later life is largely undocumented. She appears to have lived beyond childhood, yet no public interviews or first-hand accounts have surfaced. Reports of unusual behaviors after the incident, silent listening, lip movements, and geometric drawings suggest the experience may have left a lasting mark. Lisa Ren's experience challenges everything we assume about language, memory, and the unexplained. Her story, filled with lost evidence and unanswered questions, continues to fascinate and unsettle. If this mystery intrigued you, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most baffling stories. Thanks for watching.